You ever see a picture that just stops you for a second? Not because it's perfect, not because it's glamorous, but because it feels real. Like it captures something honest, something raw, something human. That's exactly what happened when a set of never-before-seen photos of Marilyn Monroe came to light. And let me tell you, these aren't your typical Hollywood shots. They're not the polished, red-lip, blonde bombshell images we've all seen over and over again. These ones are different. They're soft. They're intimate. They show a side of Marilyn that almost feels like she's letting us peek behind the curtain. These photos show her the way few people ever got to see her, young, fresh-faced, playful, and just so naturally beautiful. She looks relaxed, happy, and completely unguarded. No makeup artist. No lights. No posing. Just her being herself. And what makes it even more special? These photos were taken by someone who didn't just see her as a celebrity in the making. He saw her as a person, as Norma Jeane. Before she was Marilyn Monroe, before the fame, before the heartbreak, she was just a girl trying to figure herself out. And that's the magic of these photos. They don't show us the Hollywood legend. They show us the real woman underneath. The one who laughed easily. The one who still had that innocent sparkle in her eyes. So here's the story. Back in the 1940s, a Hungarian-born photographer named André de Dienes met a young model named Norma Jeane Doherty. She wasn't famous yet. She was just starting out, full of dreams and a quiet kind of charm. André was already well known in the photography world, and something about Norma Jeane caught his attention. She had this glow, this presence, that he couldn't ignore. He wanted to photograph her. Not as a model, not as a pin-up, but as herself. Imagine it, the mid-1940s. The California sun shining bright. A quiet beach. No studio lights. No stylists running around. Just André, his camera, and Norma Jeane. The pictures that came out of that day are nothing short of breathtaking. You see her barefoot in the sand, laughing, her hair a little messy, her smile so pure it almost hurts to look at. It's the kind of smile that feels real, not for the camera, but for the moment. André once said what struck him most wasn't her looks, though she was clearly beautiful. It was her spirit. He described her as a very young, sweet girl, much more innocent than people would ever believe. And when you look at the photos, you feel that. You see a softness in her, a kind of light that makes you pause. It's almost like meeting Marilyn before the world did, before fame changed her, before heartbreak found her, before she learned to hide behind the image of Marilyn Monroe. There's something special about these early photos because they capture a version of her that feels untouched by the world. You know how sometimes, when people haven't been molded by fame or pressure yet, they carry a kind of freedom in their face? That's what you see in these pictures. You see innocence, but you also see curiosity. You see a woman on the edge of becoming something extraordinary, even if she doesn't realize it yet. And here's where it gets even more interesting. André and Marilyn actually had a short romantic connection. But it wasn't your typical Hollywood romance. It was gentle. It was simple. He said she was open, trusting, and had this desire for connection. But deep down, there was a sadness too. He noticed it even then, a kind of ache behind her laughter. And once you know that, it's hard not to see it in her eyes. That mix of light and shadow, of hope and heartbreak. You ever meet someone who just shines before life really starts testing them? That's Marilyn in these photos. That glow, that warmth, it's still untouched. It's not confidence yet. It's something purer. It's that moment before everything changes. And somehow, that makes these photos even more emotional. Now, let me ask you something. What if the Marilyn Monroe we've all come to idolize, the glamorous, confident, sultry woman, wasn't the real her at all? What if the real woman was the one we see in these pictures, laughing barefoot on the beach, wearing her heart right there on her sleeve. It kind of changes everything, doesn't it? We've seen her in diamonds, in silk gowns, on red carpets. But maybe, we've never really seen her. Not until now. Experts who've studied these photos say they might be the most authentic representation of who Marilyn truly was. There were no big productions behind them, just natural light and genuine emotion. One art historian called them a time capsule of innocence. And when you think about it, that makes sense. Because they don't just show us a face, they show us a transformation in progress. André de Dienes kept notes and letters about her too. In one of them, he wrote that Marilyn had dreams too big for her own heart. Just take that in for a second. Dreams too big for her heart. It's such a powerful thing to say, and in a way, it perfectly describes her life. She wanted so much, she reached for everything, but it came with a cost. You know, it's easy to forget that behind every icon, there's just a person, someone who laughed, who worried, who doubted themselves. Marilyn wasn't born a legend. She became one because the world needed her to be one. But when you look at these early photos, you realize she didn't start that way. She was soft. She was searching. She was figuring out who she was. And maybe that's why these images feel so powerful today. Because they remind us of something universal, that before we become whatever the world expects us to be, we all start as someone simpler. Someone a little unsure, a little hopeful, trying to find our place. It's kind of funny when you think about it. In an age before filters, before Photoshop, here's Marilyn, completely natural, no retouching, no editing, and she's glowing. She doesn't need any of that. Her beauty comes from her being real. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many perfect pictures we scroll past every day actually hide the truth instead of showing it? That's what's so timeless about these photos. They're not just about beauty. They're about vulnerability. They show a young woman right at the edge of fame, before the world turned her into an image, before the pressure, before the heartbreak. You can almost feel her innocence and her curiosity through the camera lens. And what's amazing is how these photos, even now, decades later, still make people stop and look. They still connect. Because in them, Marilyn feels human. You can see that she's not pretending. She's not performing. She's just being. André said once that during their sessions, she would sometimes go quiet. She'd just stare off, lost in thought. He never asked what she was thinking about, but you can see it in the photos. There's a stillness there, a kind of depth. It's like she already knew she was meant for something big, but she also sensed how heavy it might become. These photos sat unseen for years, tucked away, almost forgotten. But now, seeing them for the first time, it feels like we're rediscovering a side of Marilyn the world forgot to notice. The side that wasn't polished or packaged. The side that was just real. And that's what makes this discovery so emotional. These pictures are more than just old photographs, they're little windows into who she really was. They remind us that even someone as iconic as Marilyn Monroe started out as a normal person, full of dreams, insecurities, and light. It's almost poetic, really. The woman who became one of the most photographed people in history, the ultimate image of glamour, is being reintroduced to the world through photos that show her without any of that glamour. No diamonds. No spotlight. Just sunlight and sincerity. And in a way, it's like coming full circle. Because behind every famous smile, behind every headline, there's always a story that's quieter, softer, and more human. These images don't just tell us about her. They remind us about ourselves too. About how we all wear different versions of who we are. About how sometimes the purest moments in life are the ones that aren't staged or planned. The ones that just happen naturally. That's what André captured, the truth before the transformation. He once said that he knew Marilyn would become something great, but he also worried that fame would destroy the innocence he loved photographing. And sadly, he wasn't wrong. Fame gave her everything, and took everything too. But for a little while, on that beach, in those photos, she was just a girl named Norma Jeane. Laughing. Dreaming. Alive. And maybe that's why these pictures hit so hard today. Because in them, we see her humanity. We see her soul. We see the part of her that the world rarely got to know. It's not just nostalgia. It's empathy. We look at her and see that, deep down, even the most glamorous people have moments where they're just trying to be themselves. When you really think about it, these photos don't just show the beginning of a career. They show the beginning of a story, one filled with light, love, ambition, and heartbreak. And now, after all these years, we finally get to see the first chapter again. So, when you look at those photos, what do you feel? Do you see a star being born? Or do you see a young woman trying to find her place in the world? There's no wrong answer. Because maybe it's both. And maybe that's why Marilyn still captivates us all these years later. She was real in a way few people ever are. She carried both light and darkness. And even though her story ended too soon, the humanity she showed, even in those early photos, is what keeps her alive in our hearts. So tell me what you think. When you look at those pictures, what stands out to you? The beauty? The innocence? The sadness behind her smile? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed hearing about this softer, more personal side of Marilyn, you should definitely check out our next video. We're diving into the untold stories of other Hollywood legends, women who, like Marilyn, had sides the world never really got to see. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. That way, you won't miss any of the incredible stories we have coming. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, sometimes the most beautiful stories are the ones that almost never get told. Because the truth is, before she was an icon, Marilyn Monroe was just a young woman learning who she was. And maybe that's what makes her unforgettable.